Thank you to Anker for sponsoring a portion of this video. Every year, Samsung tends to pack a ton of stuff into their flagship Galaxy S series, and this year the S23 Ultra is no exception. So obviously the S23 Ultra is the best phone Samsung has ever made. By how much? How much does it compare to last year's S22 Ultra? It's closer than you think, and farther away in some ways that you might not. Let's talk about it. So when you think of Ultra, I think most of us expect these phones to have the most Ultra-ish camera. With the S22 Ultra, that was the case. Cameras is the big story here with the S23 Ultra, but the S22 Ultra was no slouch. So it was rocking a 5-camera system, what seemed like a beastly 108 megapixel main camera. It had a 10 megapixel selfie camera, 10 megapixel in 3x and 10x telephoto cameras, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. That is a lot to say because it was a lot of cameras and a lot of megapixels. But Samsung, much like me after I ate a dessert, wasn't happy with that. It wanted more. This year we get a new and improved 12 megapixel selfie camera, which is nice to see. We also get a 200 megapixel main camera, but I think that leaves the biggest question, right? Like, can you tell? Can you tell the difference? You tell me. So I'm gonna do what I usually do with these camera comparisons. I'm gonna put up some photos. Obviously, one's the S22 Ultra, one's the S23 Ultra. Just take a look. These are two phones from the same manufacturer, so the color profiles are obviously pretty similar. But look at things like sharpness, look at things like highlights, color representations, see if you can spot any differences, and tell me which one was the S23 versus the S22 Ultra. I'll pause a second here. If you guessed B was the S22 Ultra, then claps to you. On the video side of things, differences I think are even smaller than they were on photos. So you can now shoot 8K up to 30 FPS over the 24 of S22 Ultra. And if you are a fan of super slow motion, you can now shoot at 960 FPS in 1080p, which is fun to play with probably the one time you use it, and inevitably you will forget about it. But quality-wise, these both perform amazingly well and are probably amongst the best cameras for video that you can find on any phone, no matter who made it. And you know who I'm talking about. So I didn't mention up front, but you may have noticed these phones obviously look like they are, let's say, closely related. So because Samsung didn't change much or really anything on the design front. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing here either. I've enjoyed the design on the S22 Ultra, and I'm not mad that it's sticking around. I would obviously loved a new fresh design, but I think it's realistic to expect a new fresh design every year as much as, you know, I want one. Samsung screens are so far and above everybody else. Screens on both are 6.8 AMOLED 120Hz displays, and like every Samsung phone, they look amazing, and it seems like it's just a matter of fact how good they look. They still have a peak brightness of about 1750 nits, which is great for outdoor viewing, and the OLED contrasts and colors pop just about as good as ever. We heard some rumors that maybe the dimensions of the phone would get slightly tweaked, but even that didn't happen. Only real difference is weight. S23 Ultra is now heavier by a whopping sort of bicep curling 0.17 ounces, and that's crazy, I know. I thought the weight difference might be due to bigger battery, but it's still rocking a 5,000 mAh battery like the S22 Ultra. Maybe it'll perform better. I obviously need to put more time with the phone to test it, to figure it out, to love it. There are obviously a lot of similarities between the phones, even down to the boxes. When you open these phones up, I'll give you one guess as to what you're not gonna find in there. That's a way to charge your brand new phone, whether it's this generation or last generation. And that brings us to this video's sponsor, very elegantly transitioned to talk about the latest chargers from Anker. The appropriately named Anker 313 Ace 45 watt and 312 Ace 25 watt charger. So I think Anker is probably one of the most trusted names in charging and accessories. They work, they're reliable, they're usually small and incredibly powerful, and that is no exception, especially with the 313. It's actually powered by GaN technology, which is going to give it sort of better energy efficiency and also better heat dissipation. It is teeny tiny, still delivering 45 watts of power, so it can charge your new phone or pretty much anything else that you want to power it from. Of course, USB-C. In fact, it's got super fast charging 2.0, so in like less than an hour, you can fully charge your S23 Ultra from empty. It's also, in case you're keeping track at home, 30% smaller than Samsung's 45 watt original charger. Obviously, when you buy a phone this expensive, you want to make sure it's going to be safe, and power surges and weird things can happen when it comes to electricity. The Anker 313 has something called multi-protect technology. It's going to give you 10 layers of protection, including over voltage protection, current regulation, and over temperature protection, so sort of just general heat protection. So you can like rest easy while you're charging your phone. They also have the 312. It is a 25 watt charger using a lot of the same technology you get in the 313, USB Type-C, and will charge your devices pretty fast. So if you're looking to just keep your brand new S23 Ultra, your S23 Plus, or just your regular S23 juiced, powered, safe, and keep all that charging efficient, check out Anker's line of chargers. Of course, I'll link to them down below. So what's changed? If you look closely, there's ever so slightly a different shape to the curve on the sides. It makes it feel a bit better in the hands. Plus the phone is now more powerful. It's rocking the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor optimized for Galaxy. And it comes, and this is, I wish I could say this about every flagship phone, comes with 256 gigabytes of storage, over 128 gigabytes of the standard S22. So those two changes probably won't mean that much in day-to-day, especially if you put a case on it. But you are going to get slightly better and faster processing. You can save some money for storage. I think this is a really solid move from Samsung. But I mean, honestly, it's kind of it. When it comes to comparing these phones, they are very similar. And I think that leaves the obvious answer of which one you should buy. As retailers start to stock the S23s and try to offload S22s, it is the perfect time to find a great deal. Unlike a lot of other years, the difference between these phones is so small that I think unequivocally it's probably worth saving the money and going for last year's phone. And that's a compliment to last year's phone for how good and incredible device that was. I think the only reason to get S23 Ultra is for that camera. I think it's just plain cool to know your phone's got 200 megapixels inside of it. It gives you more flexibility, especially if it comes to zooming and cropping. Samsung does have great deals on the new phones though too. If you decide you want the latest and greatest, you can trade in your old phone and save some money on the new one. Plus carriers are offering just bonkers deals when it comes to the latest Samsung flagships. But other than that, hard pressed to find any differences between these two phones aside from maybe some colors. And for us, a consumer who wants to buy one, I think that's great because you can save some money, still get a new phone in the process.